Yeah, and I've learned too, doing advisory work now, full-time advisory work for 2.5 years. The big no to me is going to be whether you're really open to coaching and having honest conversation. If you're not, let's not waste each other's time. We can't help each other. I definitely can't help you because you know all the answers. Now, that being said, typical engagement, I've worked with companies that were on a short leash. They waited too long, or maybe they just made a decision. Sometimes not their fault. It can be 3 months. That's not ideal. Although I'll tell you, my personality is I like the drama. I like coming into the heat to get things done and take that shot with 3 seconds on the shot clock.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. Today we have Jeff Parnell, author of The Heart of Transition, Fractional CEO, and a succession and exit advisor. We're going to talk about Jeff's 30-year career in the C-suite and his time with a lot of actual catalog marketing companies, which is very interesting, something that was very popular in the 80s and 90s, and how that transitioned to online marketing, and how a lot of the same tactics that were used in catalog marketing are the same that are being used today in the online space. We're going to talk about what most business owners get wrong about transition and how they can start thinking about that in advance. And then finally, we're going to talk about his writing, The Heart of Transition, and the book's metaphor in comparing business succession to that of a heart transplant. Very excited. Anybody that's looking to do a transition, there's that inflection point where they're thinking about, their succession planning and what they want to do with their business. Jeff's a great resource and is going to give a lot of good value for the episode today. So look forward to you joining us today. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Michael. It's great to be here. Love your show. I'm just thrilled to be with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, Jeff is a 30-year veteran of the C-suite, right? I mean, he's been in many different positions, from CEO to COO, and has been a part of a lot of high stakes kind of transitions for businesses and the growth of businesses. Author of The Heart of Transition, a groundbreaking book, really framing succession and exit planning through the lens of a heart transplant. And I don't want to, spoiler alert, I don't want to get into the spoils of this. We'll get into it later. But, we were connected through one of my dear friends, John Ziss. That's how we were, Jeff and I were originally connected. So anybody that John Ziss, the CEO, great CEO friend of mine. Anybody that John connects me with, I know that is going to be a good one. So Jeff, welcome to the show. Let's talk about your kind of early years in e-commerce and catalog marketing. What is a catalog? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. They were hot and heavy in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I joined in the 80s. It was a fantastic industry. What I loved about it was it's direct marketing 101. And catalogs and financial services folks are the ones that pioneered concepts like customer acquisition costs, lifetime value. And there was something romantic and glorious about going to your mailbox and seeing those great catalogs. The catalogs, one of my favorite ones of the day was Sharper Image. All those aspirational products, the suit of armor, and they put a BMW Z3 on the cover once. So it was a fun business to be a part of. And I got a chance to join one, and I knew the owner a little bit. I coached his daughter in junior high girls basketball as a senior in undergrad. Started and had a blast with it.
Yeah. It's funny though. It's funny. Like we were joking around about like catalog, we were talking to my daughter last night at dinner about how back in the day we couldn't, if we wanted to listen to a song, we would actually have to record it on a cassette tape on the radio. And she was like, what's a cassette tape? And it's funny with catalogs too now. I mean, the big thing for us as kids, I remember, is we would get the toy catalogs in the mail around the holidays. And that's how we would make our list for Santa, by like circling all the things. And like now it's like, what is that?
But you get links now with your Christmas list, don't you? In a Google Doc.
For sure. So I guess the interesting thing that I would just want to know is a lot of these companies that had these big catalogs in the past, how have they kind of transitioned into the newer way of sales? I mean, it might be an elementary question, but how does a company that really relied on catalog sales previously kind of transition into the new day?
Well, it's a fantastic question. And the reality is many catalogers did not transition as quickly as they should have. There was a fear of the unknown. And I'll get into maybe a story with a business that I launched an e-commerce site for in 2000. But at Overton's, in my debut catalog industry role, we launched a website in 1996, and I'd love to tell you it was gorgeous.
Please.
It was an ugly online catalog with little thumbnails that went from maybe they were an inch to maybe 2 inches when you blew it up. Mm-hmm. But you know what? It generated $1 million right out of the gate. Our customers liked the convenience, and we started building something, and it became a big part of Overton's. So it was really a matter of understanding. It made sense. You had customer data. I mean, everything revolves around data. You had this fantastic data. You're schooled in that in the catalog industry. People don't really fully appreciate that. In my first role, I had a blank sheet of paper, and people say, well, that sounds great. Easy. No, I was accountable for numbers, and that's all it was about. Everything else is conversation but numbers.
Yeah. So, I mean, so just like when someone's doing, online marketing and trying to get their product out there, a lot of those same metrics were used mm-hmm. in the catalog world. Right?
Absolutely. And again, I go back to lifetime value, customer acquisition costs. Now you add click-through rates and those kinds of things, but they're all related. I mean, and I like to feel that if you'd had that catalog background back in the 80s and 90s before the web became a real deal, mm-hmm. you had an advantage. And a lot of the smarter catalogs jumped in early and were able to be some of the leaders early. Some took their time, but some did not.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's just, before we get, we kind of jumped a little bit ahead to, some of these, different roles that you had in the catalog industry. Like, what is your original background? What did you go to school for? What was the first job? And then how did you kind of transition into what I really want to get into is how did you transition? You did the, working for the cataloging stuff. And then you've had a lot of multiple CEO roles. So let's just kind of go through the history of Jeff Parnell. And
so I grew up in farm country, eastern North Carolina, the eastern third of the state. Tobacco, corn, soybeans, that's where it was back then. Mm-hmm. And you had a little bit of a blue collar, outwork your opponent mindset. We mm-hmm. always felt that way growing up. I was not a farmer, not in agriculture, but it's in your DNA. It absolutely is. Yep. So I went to East Carolina University, undergrad and grad, stayed through, got an MBA. And then went into Overton's as my first real job, essentially in 1988. And I met the owner and just kind of started there.
Very cool. Very cool. So through, you did the Overton's thing and then Fish USA. What was that the next role that you had? What was that?
The next Fish USA was one of my latter roles, actually.
Okay.
From Overton's. And what was interesting about Overton's is I got that opportunity. I mean, the funny thing, too, was, and you have to love these old stories and old ways of thinking sometimes, no job description. I was the first full-time marketing employee. And I was told verbatim, make the numbers work, period. You're mailing, we're doing $20 million a year in catalog sales. Let's grow it. We ended up growing it to 80 with pretty strict financial guidelines and budgets. But it was all about performance and nothing else really mattered. And yet I was also given the opportunity by a mentor there to be very freewheeling. He loved trying things. Mm-hmm. He just a giant person in many ways, personality wise, and a dear friend to this day, 81 years old. Dear friend. But it was tight, cutthroat. We felt like we had this chip on our shoulder to beat out people who were maybe larger.
Who were the larger competitors?
At that time, one of the leaders was two in particular that ended up becoming aligned: E&B Marine and West Marine.
Okay.
And what was interesting about them is combined, they had 200 retail stores. We had at our peak 4. So we had to become the best direct marketers of the group. And I believe we were, not to take anything away from them. They were strong companies, but we had no choice. 90% of our business was catalog marketing, later the web. We had to be great at it. And I think we got great at it.
And Overton's is, I'm sorry, forgive me, sporting goods, sport supply, camping supplies, things like that?
Not so much camping, but water sports. At the time, one of our original taglines was the world's largest water sports dealer. We were the dominant force in water skis. In fact, the owner's daughter was the number one female slalom water skier for a number of years in the world.
Wow.
In the world, undisputed. And a great person, great competitor. So, and we branched into marine accessories. So anything for a power boat except the boat itself, steering wheels, anchors, you name it, boat covers, all those areas, boat seats. So anything for the water, for the power boat, kind of active, fun lifestyle. That was us.
Very cool. Very cool. So then you gained a lot of experience, in the marketing space in that particular industry.
Yep.
And then you had some other ones that were kind of interconnected, like we said, like with the Fish, USA, et cetera. What made you kind of transition into the advisory and kind of fractional leadership role?
So after doing, full-time operational work for more than 30 years, and that's the thing about me. I'm an operator. I'm not a consultant. Yeah. I prefer to be regarded as an advisor and an operator. So I transitioned after I left. I was a CEO at Fish USA through early part of 2023. We grew that business 3 times. Had a great run there. I left in January of 23. I, at that point, had seen a lot of transition work for companies fail or be under-optimized at least, and felt that was my passion. So I spent some time thinking about things I'd done really well and what I loved doing. And I had a heart to help companies transition and let owners who wanted to exit, sell, bring in a successor, get to that next chapter and enjoy life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, we both kind of play in similar sandboxes, if you will, in terms of helping someone through that transition period. But, from your experience, what do most business owners get wrong about transition? I mean, what should they be really thinking about? I mean, I like really, for me at least, I like really practical tips. So from your perspective, because I could give my own perspective and people have heard me give my own perspective on this. What are the things that, when should people be thinking about this? How far in advance?
Yeah, and you started answering some of that question because that's it, dead on. Don't wait to the last minute. Many people do. It's like getting in shape for an event. I know you do a lot of athletic endeavors and so forth. And I loved, I was a basketball player. You don't wait until a week before the game to start getting your foul shot and your footwork down. You work year round.
Yeah.
For a company wanting to transition, several years. It doesn't have to be 10 years out. It may not require, 5 years. But at least, I think, a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on the complexity and all the moving parts. Don't wait. It's the first example I give you. First piece of advice. The second piece, look somebody in the eye and be real. Be honest with yourself. And that sounds trivial, but I cannot tell you the number of owners I've talked to who've missed out on a great exit or sold for a lot less than they should have simply because they weren't honest and open and transparent. Can
you give a live example? Obviously, no names or anything. Give a live example of that.
I'll give you kind of 2 quick ones. One owner just wasn't quite ready. His name was a very prominent name in his space. He waited an extra 10 years, and not only did it take 10 years of his life, but it took $10 million off the money he would have gotten had he sold. All because he wasn't comfortable with somebody else ultimately running the business that he'd started and worked hard to build. There was another one very similar, and I'm sure this is something you see a lot. When you're going to sell a business, quite often it helps to have that CEO in waiting, or maybe the CEO is not the owner. He or she takes over. And I know a business very well where the owner wasn't comfortable with the CEO being the front person. And the reality is a PE firm is going to buy that person unless they've got somebody handpicked to come in.
Yeah.
They're not they're going to respect and appreciate all the owner did to get it to that point. Certainly. I mean, monumental tasks to get there. But I had a PE guy ask me once, said, Jeff, what's your 10%? And I said, help me understand that. And what he said, and it was great advice and great question. What are the 10% of the things you would do differently? Because yes, you might be the CEO today, but if you were running this business, what are the things that maybe you can't do because of the owner, because of organizational limitations, whatever? Give me those 10% and help me understand how they would translate into growth and more profitability. Because we all have these, these barriers somewhere. And even there's no such thing as really free reign sometimes. We're told, we can run the business. That's not as easy as that. There's a person. You can't move into a different role because they're somebody's friend. There was an initiative that was started with good intentions. That's got to remain, even though it's unproductive, unprofitable. Maybe there's a product line the owner loves that needs to be, abandoned. All of these things come into play. You've got to have that ability. So honesty, openness, being really transparent.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So now you mentioned it, and I think it's a good one, but just talking about blind spots for owners, right? And I think you brought up a really good blind spot, and whether people realize they have it or not, there is a certain amount of ego that goes into being a CEO of a company. There's a certain amount of cachet being able to say that I am a CEO of a company. So a blind spot can be, a great book, by the way, I just read recently, Ego is the Enemy. It's the ego can be a real challenge in this. And I think that's a blind spot that people don't see right off the bat. But do you have any other blind spots that owners might not be aware of that you could point out that would be helpful in just giving an owner that's maybe thinking about transitioning, thinking about exiting, what's some things that they need to really think about that they might not be thinking about?
And you already nailed ego, so no sense in piling on more. Could not agree more. So kind of the first cousin of ego is pride. Swallowing your pride and being real and open, transparent, being willing to listen to somebody with an open mind. Not that any advisor has all the answers, but great advisors ask good probing questions.
Yeah.
And being willing to listen and just step back a little bit. And before you respond, just try to understand context and maybe what's there.
Mm-hmm.
I think also being open about areas that maybe you haven't worked as hard on. Maybe you're burned out. Maybe they weren't your skill set. I had an opportunity to work with an owner, one of the most transparent people I've ever worked with. From day one, she said, and she, if she were here on this call, she'd acknowledge this. Jeff, I've been in this business a long time. I won't tell you how many years, but it was a long time, a very long time. And I've been running it for forever. At some point, I probably stopped, as I like to say, being an old basketball guy, diving after loose balls. Mm-hmm. I didn't go after some of these things anymore. I'd done my thing. I put in my fair day's work, but I wasn't looking for the next thing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that meant the world, because when she said that, I said, wow, we can make some great music together.
Now, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the one thing that I've come to realize, and I think, I think I told you this the first time that we spoke, my background is in corporate finance, commercial banking, right? So, whenever I was to present, I originally started as an analyst, right? So I was a guy that was looking for the holes in these opportunities. Yeah. But, I look at M&A advisory a lot similar to the way that I looked at, commercial banking. I would get an opportunity in, and then I'd have to go to this management loan committee or the loan committee or the board of directors and say, here's why I think we should be doing this. The one thing that I learned very on in my career is that it's easy to see all the great things about a business.
Yep.
But what I would rather do is point out the quote unquote flaws or the holes that might be there, and then give them some mitigation, right? And that could be in a business. It's like, hey, look, we've done really well with, word of mouth. We have a great reputation in the industry. We've done really well. And we've grown as far as we can without bringing on a really sufficient sales team and creating a sales process.
Exactly.
And, that could seem like, a negative aspect of the business, but the way that you can frame that is an opportunity for whoever that potential buyer is that might be able to look at it, right? So I always look at things with a business owner, like you said, is let's be really open and honest, right? As much as you think you have the most beautiful house on the block, you might still have some cracks in the foundation. I think it's best to be open and honest so that we can mitigate those things.
Without it, you're just not going to optimize the work. You're just not. It's that simple.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good. Anything else? What I really would love to get out of this is just any more, things that people just aren't really thinking about from your perspective.
Well, I think they feel there's a guilt complex that I see a lot. There's this phrase, "It's not your fault."
Yeah.
Actually becomes very real in a lot of cases. There's no need to be sorrowful or guilty or be shackled by that. as you're moving forward with any sort of transition, maybe you should have done something earlier, but you know what? We're not all perfect. None of us
Yeah.
are, right?
Yeah.
And I think that holds a lot of people back. And people feel, well, if I bring somebody in partnership with me and we're open with each other, I'm going to start exposing the cracks in the foundation, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got them. But I think it's a matter of just being able to have that conversation. That's often is a big blind spot. And just, there's a movie and there's a quote in the movie Coach Carter where Samuel L. Jackson says, "What's your greatest fear, young man?"
Yeah.
And asks it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And that's a very real thing. And fear is not a 4-letter word. We've all got things we're concerned about. But just
Absolutely.
being able to hash that out and open up and let somebody look at the businesses, the product lines, the financials, the numbers, the team, and be very honest about it. And it's not an assault on that owner or that management team. It's just we all want the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this isn't, so much, I guess it's a question, right? But I mean, maybe I think you would agree with me on this. How important is it to bring in advisors and knowledgeable experts like yourself or myself to help in this? I mean, because what I've seen is there's so many owners out there that are great widget makers or whatever they do, right? Marine supply sales thing.
Yeah.
They have this great business that's been amazing. And the funny thing is there's a million and people saying, well, people call all the time that want to buy my business and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, finding a buyer is easy. It's closing the right deal that's hard. So how important do you think hiring the right advisors are to a transition? How helpful is that?
Scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 12.
Absolutely.
I think you got to stop the yes conversations. And you don't want somebody negative to come in and just be that person that lets the air out of the room. You want somebody with energy and enthusiasm, open-mindedness, all those traits, and very positive, but also honesty. Let's be real with each other, Michael. Let's talk about the challenges of your business. Let's talk about some things we can do better. It's no different than, college baseball teams, Major League Baseball teams hire hitting instructors. Someone who's really good at hitting. They're not managing the team. They're not running the organization and building the roster. They take what's on the roster and make them better hitters. This is no different.
Yeah.
The one thing that don't perform well, they'll replace the hitting instructor.
Yeah. The thing that always makes me really happy in what I do, and I'm sure it's the same joy that you share in this, is, we can be really helpful advisors to people to really maximize whatever value, whether it's personal or financial value in their business. And what makes me the happiest is the cost of my service. I can help them earn back in that exit, right? And that's where I think people don't that's where people miss the boat here. They go, well, I don't want to hire an investment banker. They're assholes and they're too expensive. And I'm just, or I don't need to to get a succession advisor. Right. I don't need to bring them in. Why would I need to do that? Right. But I mean, if you can help them. Yeah, it's overhead, right? But I mean, if you can maximize the value, it's like, we see it all the time. Somebody said, well, somebody offered me $20 million for my business. Well, that's great. Congratulations. But what if I got you 25? Then what would my fee is non-existent then?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That is so true. So true.
As a succession and an exit advisor, can you just kind of give just a quick breakdown of kind of what would happen if someone engaged you, right, as an advisor? And, what would be some of the trigger points that somebody might say at a point in time, hey, I really need to get in touch with somebody to help me with this? Yeah.
So there's some things going on in your business that require help. You're stagnant. You're going backwards. Those are obvious. Age, health. Came across a situation where someone was terminally ill recently. I was not able to help them. But there's a lot of these variables where you just know there's another chapter for a lot of obvious reasons. Your numbers are going backwards. You're seeing negative trends. You're knowing your numbers. In fact, the first two things I look at really are, let's talk about your openness and willing to have real dialogue. Because if you can't, then we're going to waste way too much time and not get the job done. But the other piece is we're going to dive into your numbers and understand trend lines. What's heading north and what's heading south.
No, interesting. So then, how long does a typical engagement for you last? When would someone think about bringing you in? Like I guess the best way to think about it is from day the check clears, right? Back. When is the best time to bring someone like yourself in? And there often times where you come in there and you take a look at it. I mean, it's always been a great thing for me is to be able to say no to people sometimes because, hey, they're in a great spot.
Yeah, and I've learned too, doing advisory work now, full-time advisory for 2.5 years. The big no to me is going to be whether you're really open to coaching and having honest conversation. If you're not, let's not waste each other's time. We can't help each other. I definitely can't help you because you know all the answers.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, typical engagement, I've worked with companies that were on a short leash. They waited too long, or maybe they just made a decision. Sometimes not their fault. It can be 3 months. That's not ideal. Although I'll tell you, my personality is I like the drama. I like coming into the heat to get things done and take that shot with 3 seconds on the shot clock to knock it down. 3 to 12 months is generally about right. There are cases, again, given size and complexity, where it might need to be several years, or maybe there's a ramp up. Let's start a smaller kind of relationship and build up to something. Let's make sure everything's lined up, and then we get really intense.
Got it. Now, do you help bring in the other professionals that would be needed for this, whether that be an investment banker, an accounting firm? Do you bring in other parties into the transaction?
I absolutely can do that. Yes, I have a network of a number of folks, and I'm always reaching out to more people whom I think will bring the right capabilities and mindset. I mean, you're building a team. You want a certain personality, a certain vibe that you get. So yes, when needed, I will bring in that team alongside me to make sure we've all gotten it done. I mean, I work a lot with wealth managers. Because my job is very simple terms. I want to give them more wealth to manage when there's an exit.
Absolutely.
They should really welcome what I do. Business brokers I've started, or intermediaries like yourself. You want the best possible transaction. Sometimes we need to, build the house, fix the house up a little bit. I mean, you're in the process of doing some things with the house. And one of my favorite analogies is if you had 2 realtors knock on your door wanting to buy your house or wanting to sell your house, and one says, Michael, I can sell your house in 30 days, get you $1 million, guaranteed. And the other one comes in and says, I need 90 days, but if you'll fix up your basement, update your kitchen, and do this with your back deck, I'll get you $1.5 million, but it's going to cost you $150 to get it done. Who do you want to choose?
Yeah.
And that's the mindset you've got to have. I mean, some people want a short-term instant solution, not the best outcome, but that's where the intermediaries can really come in. And let's be strategic. Let's create interest. Let's get people really looking. And let's build the narrative too. So, because there are always aspects of the company that the average person doesn't recognize. And part of your role as that intermediary is to make sure buyers and partners understand the real story.
Yeah.
What have they not done and why? What have they done relatively well but can do better? And what are the success points?
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's like, I always say, there's some business owners that are great at making deals.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of the times ego comes into play and they don't want to talk about the things that are, lacking in the business because they just have the blinders on, or, they hear their buddy at the club that has a similar business and got a certain amount of money for their business and they think that they're entitled to the same. So it can get
Exactly. People, you keep mentioning this and you are spot on. The whole E word, ego, is a real deal.
It is.
And that's where the honesty and the openness and walking through numbers too, to understand why your business might be worth 12 million instead of 18 million.
Absolutely.
Or maybe how we can get it to 18 million.
There you go. Even better.
That's
so
right.
Let's transition into complete pun intended here. Writing the heart of transition. It's a very cool metaphor. Yeah. And when you had first told me about it, that really is one of the reasons what sparked my interest in having you on the show. So the heart of transition. There's a metaphor here. Tell me the story.
There's a big time metaphor. And I got this, I'll back up to basically 2017, 2018. My heart was weakening by the day. I was a patient of the Cleveland Clinic. I'd had a full round of tests and everything in December of 17. Went back to Erie, PA, which is an hour and a half away. January, I was feeling really lousy, and I said, I just need to come back in. Something's not right. I went in. What does Cleveland Clinic do? Another battery of tests. They test everything. They're like financial people in their own realm. KPIs are big to them, believe me. So my KPIs weren't very good in January of 18 and said, you're not going anywhere for a while. And the short version of the story is I left 5 weeks later with a brand new, healthy, transplanted heart. So it moved pretty quickly. I mean, I've been being a little bit on the watch list to being top priority patient. I had a team around me and it worked beautifully, but it was an agonizing 4 weeks to get to that transplant. A lot of pain, a lot of long days, but something I cherish now looking back.
What was the recovery like on something like that?
Recovery, it's funny. Typical insurance company gives you 10 days to get out once you've had the transplant. So I left 10 days after the transplant, was home in February of 18, and I struck a deal. I was running Fischer USA at the time, struck a deal with the cardiology folks there. Said, listen, I need to get back in my office. I'm working remotely. I alienated a couple of nurses from time to time when I'm taking calls. And one person accused me of not being able to see a therapist when I was wrapping up a call in the hospital. So I said, listen, I need to get back in the office. I'll work remotely, but I'm ready to get back. They said, you do physical therapy for 2 months, you'll get back. So I went home and worked like crazy. My wife, I affectionately refer to her as the general. She's not even 5'4", amazing, sweet person, best person on the planet. But she's a driver too. And I had my regimen. You're taking 7 trips up and down the steps of the basement. And I said, well, I've done 5. How's that? Nope. You got 2 more, get done. So I worked hard, but I had a mission. I was ready to come back. And even though I was physically weak, the pain was gone when I got out of the transplant. I'd lost 25 pounds in the hospital, a lot of water weight, and it just couldn't eat much. But the recovery wasn't bad, but it planted a lot of seeds in my mind in terms of what next.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I mean, obviously, at what point during, this process did you say, hey, I want to write a book about this? And why do you think that the analogy really matters here and how it changes the conversation for people?
Yeah. Well, 2 years after my transplant, I reached out to one of the coordinators at Cleveland Clinic. And by the way, I've got to plug Cleveland Clinic at every turn. Amazing people, rock stars in their profession.
Saved your life.
Out, said, yeah, I would like to meet my surgeon. Dr. Smedira is his name. I never met him because when he came to check on me, I was still, under gas or whatever it was. He met my wife, great conversations with her, but never met me. So we arranged a meeting. I went in to see him, had a great conversation. I said, so you've got to tell me what goes through your mind when you get the call that it's 8 hours or 10 hours before transplant. He looked at me, and this was during COVID, so wearing masks. I wish I could have seen his facial expression. He said, Jeff, I love what I do. And I get the team together, so we're going in to win. And I'm thinking, man, if I could have picked my guy, he would have been my guy. And it really left an indelible mark on me. Several years later, in fact, last year, 2024, I reached back out to him and said, I'm working on a book. I want to share something with you. And he agreed to write the foreword of the book, which he's already written. He's farther along in his work than I am in mine. I'm racing to get mine out the door. The foreword's done. It's a beautiful foreword. But we came out with this metaphor, and he said, I transition people with a heart, and you're doing the same thing in business. It's a metaphor. And the other side of that I really hang on to that a lot of people don't realize is when you're getting approved to be on the transplant list, you've got to have a support system. Think about advisors in your business.
Yep.
You've got to have a support system. In this case, my wife.
Yep.
Somebody who will make sure you're taking all your meds as scheduled. You're not eating certain foods. There's not a long list, but there's certain things you can't have in your diet. And how is that any different than when you're transitioning your business? You've done a lot of things that brought you to this point, but there are these 8 or 9 or 10 things you need to start changing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to start watching these things. And what they're doing is assessing whether you as a person will have the infrastructure in place, the support system in place to follow that and honor the gift of a heart when someone had a loss.
Very good.
So we immediately got it. He used the term transitionist, and I said, "Wow, I wish that web address had been available." It wasn't. I was going to grab it as soon as he said it. But we've had great conversation around it. He's a super guy, and it just that really galvanized my thinking in so many other ways. Basically,
cool.
about a year or so ago.
So, what can readers expect from the book, and why do you feel it's essential reading for business owners thinking, maybe for a transition, in 3 to 5 years?
Practical advice, real world advice, storytelling of things that actually happened. Sometimes I can't talk names, but real world input about what has worked. And every bit is important. We all know this, what did not work and why.
Yeah.
And there's that metaphor of the heart transplant woven in and out of, but it's not a medical book by any means.
Yeah.
I make no mistake about it. I think one of the bigger lessons to me is I have a message of optimism and hope because God gave me a second shot.
Absolutely.
And I'm 7.5 years in now. I feel fantastic. I don't ask for sympathy or anything like that because I'm as vigorous and healthy, maybe even more so than I've been in years. I've probably got the heart, and I don't know where it came from, but if the average age of a transplanted heart is 26, I feel like I'm 33 years old now.
God bless you. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, real quick, let's just talk them now, post heart transplant and everything. You know me, I'm really big on this kind of stuff, but what are some of your daily habits and routines that you work on personally that really help you professionally? What are you doing on a daily basis?
Well, there's a couple of things, and it starts with kind of the spiritual side. My wife and I read devotions. We read the Bible. We pray together.
Mm-hmm.
We spend that time together. We also spend time together just being together.
Absolutely.
She's an amazing woman. I'm married way over my head, but she's amazing.
Don't we all?
Yeah, we should. We should marry up. And I did. And, so that's a big part of my connectivity, appreciating those moments. Physically, I try to stay very active. I've got a little bit of a knee issue, so I can't do running. I take very long, strenuous, hard walks, hitting every hill I can find. I have a boxing apparatus. I play with that a lot. I love taking out my energy and maybe some challenges from time to time on a bag. That's a lot of fun.
Nice.
I lift. I do a lot of cardio work. So you got to work on that side of it too, which invigorates you so many different ways. Those are my routines that I really try to speak to. And every so often I remind myself, or my wife will remind me, you're honoring the gift you received. Take that seriously. Yeah. And I do.
That's really, that's a really beautiful way of putting it, that you just said that. I mean, and that's something that I've really worked on a lot this year.
Yeah.
I read a lot. I'm so deep into personal development, but that's a really great takeaway for me. Honor the gift that you receive, right? And whether that's just
gain. Somebody else had a loss. Think about that.
Yeah.
And if I get to meet the donor's family one day, that'd be great. I wrote them a thank you note through Cleveland Clinic at the 2-year mark, but I'm not going to pursue it because I want to respect that. If they want to reach out, I will absolutely honor that.
Yeah.
And be happy to. It will be really cool. It'll be different in a way, but they had a loss. I had a selfish gain. So I'm thrilled that I get to do this.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So before we wrap up for today, you have, been in the C-suite, in various roles. What's some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as a fractional and interim, CEO?
And again, I go back to being open, honest, vulnerable. You don't have all the answers. Move with impact, move decisively, get the information. There's no such thing as perfect information. Get what you can, move the business forward. Don't be afraid later to say, maybe we moved too quickly or this didn't work. And I think appreciate the moment. I mean, I have that unfair advantage, but appreciate the moment. That's not to say you ponder the great moment, the beautiful sky for 3 days. I ponder it for a little bit, but not for 3 days. But get at it and realize that it's a privilege for us to get to do what we do. You're helping a company either survive or thrive in some fashion. And that's what I love doing.
Very nice. Very nice. So what's next for you? When is the book being released? Where can people, look out for it? Where can people purchase it?
Well, the plan is to release it. I say the plan. I'm doing everything I can. It's been pushed out a couple of times because of other activities on my part, 100% my part. Q3 of 2025. So now on the clock for Q3. That's the plan. I don't think I'm going to push it to Q4. If I do, that'll be a decision I make for Christmas. It'll be available everywhere books are available, online, all the leaders there. It'll be available.
Self-publishing it, or are you
I've got a coach who's helping me with this.
Okay.
So it's a hybrid kind of model. I'll own the rights to the book. And if someone else likes it enough, then we'll see what happens. But the idea is I just want to help people. I want people to read it, get a sense of, you can come out the other side of whatever you're facing. It's what I believe and what I want to do. And I have a website set up where people can go and enter their email address. I'm not going to spam you. I'm not going to harass you, but I'll notify you when the book's available.
Very cool. What is the website? And we'll make sure we include it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's the title of the book, theheartoftransition.com.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Any final words of encouragement for listeners who might be nearing that inflection point, whether it be personally or professionally?
Start as early as you can, but if for whatever reason you didn't, don't mope about it. Reach out to people who generally will care and can bring you some help in any of a number of different ways, and people who are going to be honest with you and help you overcome. I mean, there is hope is my big message. Don't sit there and say, I blew it. You didn't. You might not have as much time on the clock as we'd all like, but you know what? That doesn't impede many of us from jumping in there to see what we can do to help.
Very cool. Very cool. And so I like to wrap up every podcast with my $1 million question. I sent it to Jeff in advance, so this is not on the spot because I wanted.
You weren't supposed to tell him that. I was supposed to pretend this was spontaneous. I never heard it before.
Man. All right. Well, I'll give you the question. So when you look back on your journey, personally and professionally, what's one moment that felt small at the time, but ended up changing everything for you?
One that was it felt small in many ways in terms of the impact it had on my later life. But I spent 7 years with a public company, Blair Corporation, joined them in September of 2000, 6 months after the dot-com bust, and was charged with launching a website from zero. And what I didn't realize, Blair had some of the finest, most decent, honorable people you'd ever meet. They would probably also admit they weren't always the most innovative and eager to change folks on the planet. I didn't fully realize that when I got in there. And what I had to do is build something without the total support out of the gate and win people over during time. And it was really a matter of building the narrative, communicating, but make no mistake about it, getting numbers. I mean, getting them to come on board the e-com train 6 months after so many people had pronounced it dead with the bust of I think March 10th of 2000 was the official day of the bust. 6 months later, I show up as an out-of-towner with slick back hair, and who's this guy that's going to get it done?
That's amazing.
Did he get the memo? And it became significant because what I learned too is it allowed me to change a culture. Yeah. And I never really thought about the cultural aspect, but I had to bring people along to a new way of thinking. And it didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of time. Looking back, I said, wow, we did really transition, not just from 0 to 100 million, which was very cool, but hearts and minds we won over and changed.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, listen, I love the way that you lead your life, and you and I very much, sit on the same page with a give first mentality, giving people hope, giving people options, and giving people, really thoughtful and the best advice possible. So, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show today. Everybody, please make sure you check out The Heart of Transition. And if you need anything, we're going to put Jeff's contact information in the show notes. Jeff, if you just want to give us your email real quick.
Yes, it's Jeff at transitionyourbusiness.com. Very long. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn anytime.
Very cool. Jeff, thanks for being on the show, my friend.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate the opportunity.